All right, welcome back. Today we are going to be sitting down with Jackson. Jackson interned with us last summer and came back this summer as a junior technician to work on a pretty large scale customer project with us. So we're going to kind of talk through his experience with that, his evolution from last summer to this summer, and go from there. So to start off, thinking about this large customer project you did without naming the customer, what surprised you the most?
Really, what surprised me the most was how small our group was to work on such a large project. It was mind-boggling that for our team at least, there's really only four or five of us, including Pat, that made up the most of the workforce from our end of what would be worked on, though we did have I know Jason worked on some of the automation. We did have some people who were kind of off and on with the project, but really for the core group, there's only four of us. And to have such a small group work on something so big, that blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So what, considering you were here last summer as more of an intern role and then came back, what parts of this project felt the most natural for you and what parts felt a bit more stretched?
Yeah, for me specifically, with the skill set that I have, and in addition to what I'm learning in college, a lot of the things that kind of came naturally were a lot of the monitoring and communications aspects of what we were doing. Especially in the later half of the project, I did a lot of working in Grafana, working in Airtable, those kinds of things where I was monitoring the systems as they were in real time. A lot of that stuff came naturally. And the things that were a little bit more of a stretch for me were things like creating applications that we could use to create configurations or program switches. Those were the things that were a little bit of a stretch for me. But even then, using the tools that we all use at Unleash You, I was able to make those a little bit more manageable.
Yeah. So you mentioned your college studies. Do you want to share what you're studying in school right now and kind of the difference of what you're studying and what the work is that you were doing this summer?
Yeah. So I am currently going to Purdue.
Mhm.
I'm a junior in interdisciplinary engineering studies, dual majoring in political science. Very different topics. Neither of them specialize in network engineering at all. But yeah, it's really interesting. I don't study what I did for
Mhm.
work with you guys. It was very interesting, and I think a very important thing for me to learn to be able to say, okay, I don't know this stuff, but I
Mhm.
have to be able to figure it out.
Yeah. Are there things you worked on for this project that you feel like you'll be able to take back with you and apply to certain aspects of what you're studying?
I totally believe that there are things that I can take back with me. The specifics, not so much. Like how to
Right.
program a switch, how to create a configuration. I'm probably not going to take back to my studies at Purdue. But the learnings
Fair
of
enough.
how to learn, how to take on something I've never done before, how to step into something, say, I don't know how to do this. Let's figure it out. That is definitely the biggest learning towards not just school, but the rest of my life that I'm going to take away from this project.
Yeah, absolutely. What was a moment during this project where you thought like, okay, I'm actually getting better at handling this specific thing or
Yeah.
better at handling projects of that size?
That's a really great question. I was reflecting on that this morning, and what I wrote down it was about a weekend to doing work with you guys for this project, and Pat had handed me some things that he wanted me to do leading up to this, and all of them it was slow. I was being sluggish on them simply because I wasn't getting it. And about a week in, things started to click. And this was around the time I was making applications to create configurations, to pull from a template and then create something new. And it was just all the stuff. It was, I was doing it, but I wasn't understanding it. And all of a sudden, about a weekend, things are starting to click and things are starting to make sense, both from asking questions of Pat, from Stephanie, Lexi, the rest of our crew,
Mhm.
asking questions of them, and also asking questions from my assistants. Things were starting to make sense and starting to click. And it was probably around that time that I was like, oh, I can do this. This makes sense. And I can take ownership and control rather than just doing the tasks that are asked of me.
Yeah. I'm curious about kind of your process. So when you are kind of dropped in to either a new piece of the project or the project as a whole, what is kind of your steps to getting oriented without getting too overwhelmed?
Yeah. So the first thing for me, and I learned this very early on because when I joined, the project was already a month, 2 months in.
Hmm.
So people were moving at a fast pace. So I learned that I had to record everything.
Yeah.
Anytime Stephanie or Pat or Lexi, and even when Colin was asking me something from my perspective, the first thing I would ask them is it okay if I record this? I'd pull out my phone, I'd pull out my recording app, and I'd record everything that was said. And then I would follow that up by one, creating a transcript of that recording, and two, throwing that recording into one of my assistants and saying, let's break this down. Some of these things I don't understand. Some of these things I didn't catch when we were in our conversation. Let's break it down. Let's understand what I need to know and what I need to do. So
Yeah.
the process was a lot of let me have a conversation. Let me break down that conversation and then let's get to work.
Yeah. And was that process similar for trying to understand the kind of overall goal of the project, customer needs, and the why? Or did you have a separate process for understanding new pieces and understanding the goal overall?
Yeah. Generally it was the same. Maybe the specifics on how I did it. Did I pull out my phone and record while I was on a Zoom meeting? No. Did I pull up my phone and record whenever I was reading a document? No. But
Right.
a lot of the process was generally the same on, okay, I have this document, I have this file, I have this idea. Let's break it down to smaller parts. For me,
Yeah.
looking at from such a big spot, especially coming in a month late, from where the rest of the crew started, it was one of those things where it was, I need things to be small in order for me to understand where it is. And right now things are compounding and becoming big.
Yeah. During the planning of certain aspects of the project, what questions do you feel like were the most important to ask? Whether it was around scope, timeline, priorities, what completion looked like for the project, like what for you became your most important questions to ask that you found?
Yeah, with the position that I held, I kind of came in as an extra hand. The most important question that I could ask is, where do you need me?
Hmm.
What do you need me to do? And what can I take on? At that time, coming in initially, that was probably the most important question to ask to add to that team dynamic, take off things from people's plates, and take on a little bit more responsibility and show that I can do work. um Attach that to, can I record this conversation?
Right.
um yet again, going back to hitting that record button and making sure I knew what was going on and I was having the conversations and I was being present with the conversation. But if I missed anything, I do this at school too. I record all of my lectures because I'm gonna miss something's gonna happen. um you always want to respect people's privacy and respect the realities of the work that's being done, so you always ask, can I record? And then from there, you move forward, you get your recording, and then go and have that conversation with somebody else if you have a question. I know there was a conversation that I had with Pat about an application that he wanted me to write, and I recorded our conversation. I was sitting at my desk listening back to the conversation, and it just struck me, I don't understand what he's asking me in this
Hmm.
specific area. So that led me to go and have another question. What do you mean by this? Or go and ask my assistant, how can I look at this from a different perspective, or what, for example, there was a switch that we were configuring and putting together, and it had some special things on it, and I just didn't understand how to interact with it for that specific instance. And I just went to my AI and I said, I have this switch. We want it to do this. How can I do this? How can I interact with it? What prompts do I need to put into my command prompt to get there?
Mhm.
And those things came together. So I think definitely understanding how to collect your information and always ask the question, can I record this? Only for the sake of respect of others and respect for the project would I ask. Otherwise, I would just do it.
Yeah, for sure. When you were in the building stage, you just talked a little bit about like talking with your kind of AI assistants and using those tools to help you. How did you know in the kind of execution part when to troubleshoot things independently or independently using your AI tools versus going to the team, asking for help, escalating kind of those issues? Did you have a process for deciding that? Was it just kind of in the moment making that call?
There were. I'm going to track this back a little bit
Mhm.
to the first thing that I did for this project. The first thing specifically assigned me was to break down change rules. There was a very specific process that was asked of us to be followed for those rules, and I incorporated that into what I chose to do individually, what I chose to bring up to the team, and then further what the team chose to bring up to the rest of the teams that we were working with. Um, and it really broke down to what is the impact of me messing up something by myself. If it was a huge impact, then it would be escalated to the team and to the rest of the teams that we worked with. If it was something that was, oh, I just have to re-put something back in, I would do it myself. And it
Mhm.
was understanding what is the severity of me making a mistake. I'm very confident in myself and my abilities, but I do understand I make mistakes. And if I can keep those to a minimum, that is the best thing that I can do for this project.
Yeah, absolutely. Since this was kind of a larger project that you were working on, how were you able to keep track of the things that you learned along the way? That way you wouldn't have to go back and either relearn or you wouldn't have to go back to the team and be like, "Hey, I know I already did this, but can you show me again?" How did you kind of keep
Yeah.
track of those learnings?
So I have several systems, and it's something that Unleash You does a great job of teaching us, does a great job of really digging into that's important. And it's always smash that record button, use your guru cards, and write things down. For example, and I only hold it up backwards because this is something that I got in reference to this project, and it's very special to me. But I got let's see there, a little notebook,
There it is.
and this notebook. Um, it holds in here almost everything that I have done, worked on, or learned throughout this project. I made it a point to write down in here at least once a day what I worked on, what I learned, something new. For example, there's a page that just talks about all the different applications I made um, in a certain day, a certain aspect. It talks about my configuration template generator application that I made. And you just have to make sure you write things down, make sure you record them. And if you can, there are certain instances where I couldn't just because at a time I didn't have access to something, but if you can, record it on your machine, record you doing it, so then it's not just you who knows how to do it, but everybody else can see it and understand how to do it.
Yeah, you mentioned that you built a configuration template application. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? What does that do? What did that look like?
Yeah. So this was so the first thing was that I had to do for this project was look through the change rules. The second thing was make a configuration template application. Um, I it had to have been my second day, and I had only started ever so slightly last year using anti-gravity, using Cursor.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's Cursor. It's not
Yep.
Claude. Claude is an AI. Cursor is an
Cursor,
application. Yep.
yep.
Um, using anti-gravity, using Cursor, and this year it was just right out of the frying pan into the fire. Um, and the question was asked to me, okay, we have this system already, an application that Pat made where it was just the templates of pre-made things. And let's make these have to be converted into a certain thing, and we have things we have to add to them. And the question was asked to me, can you do this? And I said, of course I can do it. It will be something that if I do by hand will take me 3 days. And in that one conversation, the idea was brought up of why don't you just make an application? We'll do it will take you what? At most an hour to make an application, and then it would take you 30 minutes to put in all these values, and it'll make it itself. And it really brought to my perspective of, oh, I can solve a lot of problems by just taking an hour to make an application. This application ended up working very well. It went through about 3 different iterations for different things. We added the ability to choose what location because this project worked locationally.
Mhm.
There were different things in it, different places. We were able to choose different locations, what specific items we wanted to be present in our configurations, what VLANs, special things that might change. So this application is able to break those things down at this current point. Initially, it was just, okay, you throw in a template, you tell it I want this, and it prints out this. But now it's the where it stands, you're able to throw in a template, which originated from what Pat's application did. And now you're able to put in so many different things, customize it and everything, or not. You can literally put in a template, say, I want this, this, and this, and it'll shoot out something versus, oh, I want this here, I want that there, and I want a whole bunch of different things. And that is a true story for about 3 or 4 other applications I got the opportunity to make this during this opportunity, during this project. One of them is a switch programming application where it pops up with you fill out some basic information about a switch. Is it 24 port? Is it 48 ports? And you're able to individually select ports from a graphic, and program them all individually. And those things were, although small, they were able to positively impact both the team that I was personally working with our team and other teams that were maybe doing more on-site tasks.
Gotcha. Yeah, thanks. That was awesome. We can go back to the customer project. Thanks for walking through that though. Since this was, um, like we've talked about, a pretty big project, what kind of mindset shift did this require from like, I'm just doing tasks to I'm owning a part of a larger outcome?
Mhm.
And where do you feel like you kind of landed at the end of it?
There were times when I had to have a mindset of I'm kind of doing tasks,
Hmm.
and there were times when the mindset was this is my part of something much larger. When I was doing monitoring, looking at Grafana, watching WebEx all day, it was very much a mindset of I'm doing a task simply because of the task. It was something that was much larger than just me sitting there and watching WebEx. But that's just the mindset that generally and most naturally came in, and being able to control the understanding of this is just a task. And not saying it was mind numbing, but whenever you sit there for about 3 hours and nothing comes through and you're twiddling your thumbs, you're like, oh, well, there's today's a slow day.
Right.
That's something that just naturally comes to mind. This is just a task. But when you're doing things like creating applications that people are going to use, when I'm in a system actually interacting with the switches and the locations that this project relied on, you have that understanding of this is something so much bigger than the one thing that I'm doing. When you're doing those things, it's so easy to understand that this is bigger than the task itself. At the end, I at the end of this project, there was an understanding and a true respect for the fact that there were tasks, and at times they felt like tasks, but in reality, it was part of this massive endeavor. It's there was, I think, 8 days after the official end of the project, I saw a few videos come out just looking at different aspects that I didn't even touch of this project. And it just really put into perspective how my little part helped with something so much larger.
Yeah, that's awesome. What I know you talked about an application that you built. What is an example of something other than that one application that you created or improved during the project that you feel like helped more than just you get through it?
There, a lot of things that I created or worked on were application wise. But the that's a really good question. Oh, okay. So me and Pat one day, or Pat and I, because Pat would crucify me if I said me and Pat. Um, Pat and I one day were working on putting in configurations to switches, and they, it was, it was so mind-numbing. I remember we were at the office and we stayed there way longer than we should have, knowing what we know now, way longer than we should have, because it was our understanding was this has to happen one at a time. We have to fill out this stuff, put it in one at a time. And at some point, we just broke on it. And we said, we have to step back. There's got to be a better way. And we found it was more of him on this than me, but we found that you were able to, by setting things up very specifically, we had to use a variable. And it what we did is it was in the configlet, we made a configuration, put it into a configlet. If we used a variable, and I think what we ended up doing, it was just dollar sign version was the variable that we made. And it was such a simple little thing to add. You were able to ship everything out to every switch all at once. And you're able to choose what that variable was. And we just ended up putting it to where there was a bang mark before the dollar sign, which meant that it meant nothing. But simply by doing one thing, one tiny little change, one tiny little improvement to what we made, we were able to make work so much faster, so much easier. And it took us, subtract the time that it took for waiting, because whenever you send things out that big, it takes forever. But it took us maybe 10 minutes to make everything shipped out and go to where it needed to go. After we did that, it was going to take us all night to be able to figure it out up until we realized there's a better way to do it.
Yeah. All right, that is the end of my long questions I have a few rapid fire ones for you.
Let's
You can
do
answer
it.
them in like 30 seconds or less each one.
Ooh,
What
I
is
like to talk.
what is one word or phrase you would use to describe intern Jackson versus Jackson today?
Enlightened.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. What is the most useful skill that you've gained this year?
The ability to adapt to any number of situations.
Yeah, I love it. What is a tool you learned you can't live without?
Anti-gravity and or Gemini.
Oh, yeah, those are good ones. What is or what was the best part of such a large project that you didn't expect?
Having stories that I can talk to my friends, my family, to people that I interact with that aren't just this is what I did, but it's a reality that they can see and understand what I've done and what it means.
Yeah. And what is one thing you're excited to build or learn next?
Oh, excited to build or learn next. I am excited to learn how I can take these skills that I learned here and apply them to whatever I end up doing next, regardless if they're the technical skills or the personal skills.
Awesome. Well, thank you for walking us through kind of your evolution over the past summer from last summer and pulling back the curtain on such a large project. This was a blast. And thank you for doing this with me.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.